Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure for me to finalize the Avnet supply chain presentations. We saw in the last few days presentations from Brian Wilkin and Doug Kent and Pascal Fernandez. And now it's a pleasure for me to finalize this. And I finalized it a little bit with a different approach because it is an approach what has happened in Europe. And it's always the question, are we in calm waters or in the eye of the storm? And that is the forecast in Europe. And one thing that I can promise, we speak this week a lot about risk and so on, and we have nothing to do with the power interruption this morning in Europe, in Munich. We have nothing to do to show what is risk. We are not guilty, but this is the current economic forecast for Europe. There are some clouds, there are a little bit rainy. And behind this rainy and cloudy forecast, there are some risks. And risk is not an isolated thing. That's nothing that you can do by your own, and you can handle it not by your own, because you have totally different partners there, and you have totally different approaches. You have on one hand, you have your own organization. There you can do a lot. You can cover a lot of risks. You can think about what can I do if something happened. But you have also on one hand the suppliers, and you have on the other hand, you have your customers, and both are also have their own risks. And these risks of your suppliers and your customer have also impact on your own organization. And these risks are not only economic risk, there are also financial risk, there are public government risk, and so on. A lot of things, and you have to cover it. And the question is also, what factors should I consider? And there are a lot of different criteria that could have influence on your risk management and especially your supply chain. I think it is time to go a step back and think what are really our risks regarding our own supply chain. What could be the impact on our supply chain, and try to expect the unexpected. That's something nobody thought 3 years ago about a tsunami in Japan. Nobody think about a flood in Thailand or whatever. And I think there are also political risk. You can see also a situation could be totally different to some mergers and acquisitions. Everything is possible what you can imagine. What is the European outlook on the electronic market? I think the first and the important message is our business is still a growing business, and at the end our business is still healthy. We have still a huge growth, and a lot of other branches will be very happy if they have the same growth rates as we have in our business. And also the business in West Europe will increase. That's absolutely clear. Also in the next years, the forecast for 2013 and 14 is still positive. But what we have to consider is our opportunities in EMEA are different as the opportunities in Asia or in US. In Europe, you have still the automotive industry and the industrial market are the drivers for the growth, and that are still our opportunities. And it was also not or there was a lot of question during the last 2 years. Why is the growth so high, and why is our economic figures are so stable in the last 2 years? And one very important topic is we have a huge industrial market, and that's something we see. But it is totally different, the market in Asia or in US. That's something you can see very clear. We have nearly no consumer market in Europe. We have a huge automotive market area, but also military market is not a huge contributor of our business. In EMEA, that's the difference, what we see. Automotive, it is on one hand, it is innovation and it is export. That's what we see very clear. 26% of passengers cars in worldwide are still produced in Europe. That's, but there is a huge pressure from China. They are very close with 24%. And these production figures, we can see that is the most of them are going for export. We exported to East Europe, to Africa, to South Africa, North America, and so on. That's what we see. It is automotive, is innovation. It's a key driver for Europe, but it is an export business. That's what we see very clear, and that means we have still a very, very high pressure to optimize cost and productivity. That's something what we see, and this will not stop. But we have also our advantages on the industrial market. That's something we see very clear. Industrial market is one of the key driver for the growth in EMEA. And if you look on the figures for 2017, there is still a huge growth and a huge growth on different areas. Also on manufacturing, process automation is one of the key driver for the next years. And you see on the next slide, energy efficiency is a supply chain driver and a business driver for the next years. I know there is always a huge discussion about the current rules, about some legal issues and so on, and politics, but at the end, it will be one of our key drivers in Europe, will be energy efficiency. And there, the growth, what you can see here, is unbelievable high compared to other branches, because that's really only energy efficiency behind. Macro factor, and there is the question, what you can see here also, headwinds or hurricane. And also, that is from Henderson, that's the outlook for Henderson. That's also positive, and it's positive for EMEA also. The growth in other areas will not so high as in the past, but for Western Europe, we see positive figures. The global market provide no really growth impulses for the future. Also, if you see the PMI for the global marketing, for the global manufacturing, there is no huge impulse, and that's, in the best case, it's more or less flat. Also, the same is for Europe. It will be flat over the next years in total, but there are some huge drivers to keep it as it is, and that's, I think, that will be one of our challenges, to keep it. But the question is, what will be happen next? And there are some challenges, but there are also opportunities. I think one of our challenges, of course, is that's the old norm. That's how the business act in the past. It was always not easy in our area because the electronic industry is really one of the global industry from day one. We have a lot of experience to be global, but we have a new norm. And that is something based on the old norm. We have now a very, very complex system with a lot of partners in. And I think that's something what we really have to consider is we have now such a complex supply chain, and that creates delays. That's one point. It creates a lack of visibility, dissatisfaction, costs, and obsolescence. And I think, and I still believe, that our supply chain in the electronic industry is far too expensive compared to other supply chains of other branches. They calculate with totally different costs, and one point is this complex picture, and the other point is also that we have no standards, no really standardized messages, labeling, and so on, that increase our costs for the supply chain. But we have also to keep in mind that this is the development of the semiconductor market since 1999, and you can see that the share of Europe is still dropping. We come from 21%, and now we are currently around 12% on the worldwide market is used in Europe. That is, of course, that is a challenge, and that is a risk, because you don't know what has happened, and I'm pretty sure the next allocation will pop up, and there the quantities will go to the huge volume producers, and that's one of the challenges what we have to keep in mind, that our share on the worldwide semiconductor market dropped in the last 13 years by 9%. Inventory check is also, at the moment we have all the impression, oh, we are in a very good situation. We have a lot of parts on stock. Everything is available from one day to the other day. But this is not true. It is, at the moment, we have a relatively normal stock level across the supply chain. Nobody have a huge pipeline. We see also that the capacities are not increased. And if you look also on the worldwide semiconductor market, in the last years, the capacities are not significantly increased. That means if something has happened, will pop up a new application or whatever, all the lead times will increase immediately from one day to the other day. And there is no stock, and the additional capacity is very, very limited. Also, credit situation. It is at the moment for companies too expensive to invest. That's the problem. And the credit situation will not help us to increase our business and supporting investments. Also, component counterfeiting increase. And that's something also we have to be aware. We have there a security problem with counterfeiting. And we see this more and more, and it's not like in the past that everybody can see it more or less on a second view, that part is not original made. No, these are really well done, and this is a problem. That's more and more, and that's a huge risk for the supply chain. But there are also other risks, and we are not aware of it, and that impacts our supply chain. Two examples that I have here. Foxconn is now the biggest CEM in the world. A lot of people know them because they work for Apple, producing the iPhone and so on. And their demand is higher as the total components TAM of Europe. That means they produce or they use more parts as all companies in Europe together. And that's something, on one hand, they can be proud because that's a success story. On the other hand, this is a huge risk, and that's also a sign, that's a good sign, where are the balance? I think on this, it is unbelievable high. The other company, maybe Foxconn, a lot of people know them. They are very often in the press. But the other point is TSMC. It's the biggest semiconductor producer in the world. But to be honest, a lot of people don't know them. They know all the products that are coming out from the factory, but they don't know this company. But their economic power is now more or less 1% of the world GDP. That's the same GDP as like South Korea, and that is one company. But the risk is also, if something is happen tomorrow with TSMC, that impact us all, because there are a lot of semiconductor, I don't know, is manufacturer the right word? Let me say semiconductor brand companies, because they print only their brand on the semiconductors. There we have a lot from. And that's really a risk that we have now such huge players in our supply chain. And you could imagine what is happening if maybe Foxconn decrease or increase their forecast by 10%. That means it is more or less the same as all companies in Europe are increasing or decreasing their forecast by 10%. That has an unbelievable impact for all, for the situation, to get parts. That's really a huge impact, and that's something we have to consider. Lessons from the crisis. What we learned during the crisis and after the crisis, I heard there was a very good initiatives to improve things. We had the impression, okay, we learned from the crisis. And what we learned was we have to do identification. How to identify risks and cost driver. We have to do more there. We have the other point to do reduction, complexity. That is what we see. We have a very complex supply chain. We have to reduce it. We have on the other side optimization, transparency. A lot of processes are not very transparent to the suppliers and to the customers. And improvement, strategy improvement, and so on. We have to do it. Development, it was clear, we need standards. We have changes to cost to serve. In a positive way, we thought in the past about total cost of ownership. Now we have to think normally about cost to serve and planning, adaptation of plans. We have to be faster, really to do more. That was the warm words and initiatives who are started. But where we are now, the boom after the crisis stopped a lot of very good initiatives. That's one of the problems what we had, because now it was really, there was no time to think about strategy. There was no time to drive the new ways, because now the daily business consumed the complete time. And to be honest, instead of going new ways, we go back to our old behavior. That's something, it was clear, and that's what we see very clear, especially at the moment with a market that everybody thinks, yeah, now it's time to get the money back what we spent during the crisis, during allocation for the higher price. Now it's time to get our money back, and to increase price pressure to all the parts are available from one day to the other. But to be honest, I don't believe this, because I think we have not such a stable supply chain. We have not such a stable demand in our branch. And if you look now on the as an example, there was this week Google offered their new tablet PC, Nexus 7, and now you have the situation that was after 6 hours, it was completely sold. It's not clear when you can get in US or in Europe now a new Nexus 7. But of course, now you have also a company in who will make a lot of pressure to the market to get components, to get displays, to get production capacity to fulfill before Christmas, and it's not so far, to fulfill a lot of customer requests. And this is things are, we have not such a stable supply chain. We have now new driver in the supply chain. Think about Amazon, about their Kindle and the Kindle Fire. That's now also new, additional driver. They will come in the supply chain, and it's something you cannot plan. And we have, that's an impression from us, we have still old solution for new problems. Price focus. It's really every service on supply chain or whatever, you get it for free. That's part of the price, and it is still a very, very huge price focus and price pressure. The other point, limited strategy. It is still not clear very often what the company wants. And it's also, strategy means also that you not change every day the strategy, that you stay with your strategy and that you keep it adapted, but not to change everything from one day to the other day. And I can give you from our side a very good example. We had a customer, and we had a huge pressure to increase our buffer stocks more or less from one day to the other day, really extremely. And 4 months later, the customer comes and said, "Hey, can you buy parts back from our normal stock?" And this is only really 4 months between. And that's really something we have to consider. What is the right strategy? And we need there a little bit more, a little bit more power behind it, and we need a stable strategy. Limited planning, also something what we see, more or less everything should be available from one day to the other day. Risk management, it's discussed a lot of people think, yeah, it is discussed, and that's also something. I think we had, unfortunately, we had Sandy 2 weeks ago, and there was 2 companies, and one company, they are really well prepared for such a storm. They had no problem, and I will not mention the name. And the other company had really a huge problem after Sandy because they did nothing regarding risk management, and that a storm could be happened in New York. And they had a huge problem. All the water comes in, a lot of servers are damaged and so on, and that was really a nightmare. But the end is, the first company had nearly no issue during the hurricane. And that's also that we very often we ignore the unexpected things. That's something we have really to think about. What could be happen? And I'm pretty sure yesterday evening nobody thought that a power interruption could be happening in Munich this morning. And that's the same example. There we have to think about it. And supply chain risk management means that you have a business strategy, and you go down and you have a supply chain strategy, you have a supply chain configuration, supply chain assets, you have, for all these areas, you have the right business strategy, because it is risk management must be part of the business strategy. And that's our own slide, what we have here, how we see it. And I think at the end, extraordinary supply chain means always trust. And that means one key thing for me is, in every company and in every supply chain could be something happen. Always. There is nothing without risk. But the really question is how you communicate this, what is clear, what have to be communicated. And that's something you need really, that's the part, information, analysis, mitigation and action. And that's always a cycle there. You have to be in there, and you have to train people. You need the right tools and processes. And you need also the right solutions for it. And that is something what we think we have to do it together with customers, because risk management is not a thing that you can do alone. Risk management is something, a part of a corporation, because you have to do it. And it's not, and that's something also we have to learn, it's not finger pointing. It's really something, it have to be a cooperation between your own organization, between the customer and the supplier. And in the best case, there are all 3 parties in one room to get it done. And that was my last slide. I'm really on time. That's supply chain management, 29 minutes. But I'm still open for questions. Also, you can get the presentation from me if you like. If you give me your business card, I will send you the presentation. Thanks a lot for your attention. Thanks a lot for your time. I wish you a good day here on the fair, and thanks a lot for being here. Good afternoon.